go.
Thank you. So
Thank
everyone,
you.
that was Ann Pickering. Ann mentioned that there are 20,000 incidents a day. I
my
have a
God.
feeling that half of those are related to my personal or professional life, and probably 3,000 of them just since 9 o'clock this morning. So we may be skewing the numbers a little bit there.
Yeah, some of them were definitely related to this morning and my yesterday as well. So
Oh my God. I wish I had personal analytics of
That-
my own risk insight and risk intelligence of how many bad decisions or incidents I've had maybe since birth. I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. Our friends at
I'm trying
Onsolve
to
should
forget half of
look
those.
into personal risk analytics. I think that might be fascinating.
That's an amazing stat though. 20,000.
So that's a lot of
Incidents a day.
incidents.
Wow. When you think of it, and who knows how much that impacts us. Half of those could be impacting us and we don't even know it.
I was very surprised that Anne mentioned, the three categories of risk that they're seeing trending up. One related to inclement weather.
Mm-hmm.
Makes total sense to me. I was surprised that the third category was transportation issues, not related to supply chain, but outside of that. That's not something I would have expected.
Yeah, the example she gave regarding the Panama Canal was rather interesting.
Yes.
Because I've heard issues with the Panama Canal, but knowing that there's what was it? It was the freshwater lakes that feed the canal. If there's issues with them, that means there's issues with people as well. So it's not it's you end up with a whole bunch of different issues with just one thing happening.
Yeah.
So Amber had a great example there. I think that's wow.
Yes. Yeah, it's just interesting, building on Regina spoke about the poly crisis and talked about people in our profession handling 12 things at the same time. It feels like a theme for the day. So I'm hoping that the fire alarm doesn't go off or something catches on fire here. We will have our own poly crisis. Very exciting.
With our luck, something will.
I was actually related to that, Alex. One time I was doing a tabletop exercise for a group in Phoenix, actually. And, I was trying to tell them, okay, pretend this is the real world. We're going to try to make this as realistic as possible. And about 15 minutes into it, the fire alarm went off and everyone looked around and they're like, wow, this is really immersive. And I was like, no,
they thought
man,
it was you.
This is the fire alarm is going off. We need to leave. So we actually had to, and there was actually a fire. Thankfully, a minor one, but we had to interrupt. It's the first time I've ever had to interrupt an exercise for an actual event. And we were outside for an hour and a half while the fire department took care of the fire. But it always made me laugh that this organization thought I was so involved and over the top that I had manipulated the fire alarm to go off in a 15-story building as part of my exercise as an inject.
Man, this guy is good.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not that. I wish I was that good. I'm not that good. We need to evacuate because there's a fire.
It's real. Yeah, get out.
Speaking of fires, I'd like to talk, as we always know, we've got a million news topics, hopefully, to go through. And I saw this article. I'd love to get your take on around the wildfires. We spent a lot of time in the last 2 years talking about wildfires, but this was related to liability. So Pacific Corp, who was found liable and guilty for some damage with the Oregon wildfires. They believe that the amount estimated that they're going to be fined for when all is said and done is $11 billion.
Wow.
US. So it got me thinking, I don't think I have ever factored in liability cost when I am building a BC program or when I am measuring the ROI of a BC program. But if you were this organization, Pacific Corp, and you were their BC manager and half of the West Coast burned, and now you may be liable for up to $11 billion. To me, that seems like a material amount. That's a BC related amount. So what are your thoughts, like as things get more extreme, as things get larger and crazier, should we start factoring in liability costs either as a savings or a risk for our BC programs.
You know what? I think it is something that we would have to think of. I- we were talking about it earlier, where we have to get beyond looking at single scenario situations and looking at other things. And I think now that we are having multiple crises occurring, as Anne and Regina mentioned, as this constantly occurs, the companies now are going to be looked at. Why didn't you plan for this? Why were you not prepared in some way for this? Why are you not covered? Or in some instances, you were the cause of this. I think there's still the talk of the fire in Hawaii with the power company being liable as well. So I think it's a new part of our business.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to me to see how insurance companies write those policies. For Illuminate Advisory, we have general liability insurance as required by our clients at amounts covered as required by our clients. But how do you develop a liability policy for a polycrisis? So what's the insurance policy for a wildfire and an employee strike that affects a company's downstream logistics and Godzilla attacking? Like, as an insurance adjuster or an actuarial, trying to create an actuarial table, how are they even going to think about how to build that? It reminds me right now, you see a lot of companies exiting cyber insurance because they just realize they don't know how to capture the actual risk or liability of cyber insurance. So you're seeing several insurance companies just exit that industry altogether.
I believe that's happening in Florida with tornadoes, isn't it?
Yeah, we've seen several. I'm based in Florida, and we've seen several homeowners insurance companies say, we're not going to cover any of you. So, for example, as most people know, I'm built on high ground for Florida. I'm built in a no evacuation zone and no flood zone, the safest part of the state, but it is still a peninsula and the climate is changing. And so companies are saying, we're not going to insure any of you. So,
and yet it's the law to have insurance.
You have to have homeowners insurance. Absolutely, it is required. So what's happened in Florida, the insurance company of last resort is called Citizens, and it's owned by the state. And originally it was designed to be limited use. And now I think it's one of the largest homeowners insurance companies in the state of Florida. And that's a massive liability. So if you look at the cost and expense of a Category 5 hurricane hitting the state of Florida, and now the hurricane insurance is also covered by the same state of Florida, you have an incredible liability and cost that's going to happen at the same time.
Yeah, with the same people.
With the same people.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think that's just a testament to the way things are going, in not just our industry, but in a lot of industries. Insurance, as an example, with tornadoes, we've got wildfires, we've got earthquakes, we've got tsunamis, we've got, the floods that are occurring in places that don't normally occur, where they have rain for a day and a half when, it's a storm, of the century, so to speak. And more of these events are occurring. Well, that's having an impact, obviously, not just on us trying to build widgets or, financial transactions or whatever, but everything. It's having an impact, and insurance can't cover everything.
Exactly. Speaking of weather events, the exhibit hall has thinned out as lunch has ended and people are off in sessions. The air conditioning in the exhibit hall is set for a temperature when the exhibit hall is full. Right now, the exhibit hall is not full, and I expect it to start snowing here any minute. It's very cold. Some of our colleagues from Voice America were smart enough to bring sweatshirts, which they now have on. I expect to see parkas and hats and probably snowshoes in the next 20 minutes. I'm regretting my clothing decisions at the moment.
I have my jacket just in case.
Alex is prepared for the unexpected, so he has a jacket on. I am jealous. All I have are a series of golf shirts, which do you no good
No.
in the cold. Lesson learned.
Lesson learned.
Speaking of cold, the reason I only have golf shirts today, look, so we're in Phoenix, Arizona. And so on Saturday here in Phoenix, Phoenix broke the record for the most 110 degree Fahrenheit days ever with
Wow.
54. The previous record was 53 in 2020, but there's only 120 days. Oh, excuse me, there's 120 days left in the year. So they've already set the record. As we know, it's so hot that the reception that is usually hosted outside every Monday night at DRJ Fall, which I always love because there's free food, honestly, and great networking, will be held inside because the hotel said if it's above 103 degrees and you don't have basically a tent big enough for 700 people, which DRJ does not have a 700 person tent, and air chillers, that they have to bring it inside. So just thinking about, 110 degrees Fahrenheit, that is, my Celsius is terrible. So what, that's 40 degrees Celsius.
100 is around 40, right?
Yeah. And so 10 of that. So maybe 42, 43. How do you build? I'm wondering, how do we build BC plans and how do we become resilient when you have this extreme type of heat?
You know what? I don't think there is one answer to that. I think because it's happening more and more and it's happening in different places, because some of those temperatures you just mentioned are happening in places up north too.
Yeah.
That it's just the things that were improbable before are becoming probable. So it's a complete mindset change in what can impact you, regardless of where you are, because we've got permafrost up in Canada that is now thawing. Well, whoever thought of that? My entire life, it's been frozen, not in the last couple of years. So it's just changing nonstop. And I think the nature is now of, if you can think something can happen, it probably will. It's not a case of probability versus impact. It's the probability is it's going to happen now. To what degree, you don't know, but it's going to happen, period.
So are you saying that, so the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters,
Give it time.
it's going to happen?
Give it time.
I can't wait for our podcast episode when that happens.
Yeah, I want to see that plan.
There is no BC plan for the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Or there might be. If you have one, let us know. We'd love to read it.
Yeah, I really would love to read that. But it's true though. Anything can happen. The floods out in the East Coast, in Maine and Nova Scotia, places like that, they were just recovering and they get floods again. And these are places that don't normally get flooded, if ever. Because of the tides. That if there is water, it goes up the. Oh my God, my fellow Canadians are going to kill me for the bay. The bay. Oh my God, the bay that fills up and empties.
You have to take that Canada pen off if you don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I'm an American, so I don't need to know geography.
Bay of Fundy.
Bay of Fundy.
So
okay.
high tides and water fill up the Bay of Fundy, and then they recede. But you have those high tides coming in now, and with rain that has been unbelievable. Now you've got twice as much water to deal with, and you can't deal with it. Never worried about that as of 2 years ago, even. But the last two, it's been incredible, unbelievable. And places in the States have been doing that. California, they were suffering from droughts for years, and then just a couple of weeks ago, they had that massive rain that was flooding everybody out.
Yes.
From one extreme, literally, to the other. There is no gray area anymore. It's this or that.
That's amazing. Well, believe it or not, Alex, we've reached the bottom of another hour. Thankfully, your Canadian card was not revoked.
Yes, thank
goodness. We'd like to thank our friends at OnSolve because they were the sponsor for this hour, reminding you physical threats such as severe weather, infrastructure failures, or civil unrest are forcing everyone to prepare for unpredictability. OnSolve is a leading critical event management provider that proactively mitigates physical threats allowing organizations to remain agile when a crisis strikes. For more information about OnSolve or to request a demo, please visit www.onsolve.com.
And thanks to Ann Pickering for coming by and having us chat with us.
Yes, and
Well.
for your patience with our technical difficulties.
Maybe we can get them addressed in our next break here.
We'll see.
We'll be back in a few minutes, everyone. Take care.
If you like that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.